For all those that do not know me, first and foremost, hi, I'm Julie Schmidt, host for this room and club. While we're getting started, for everyone to arrive, you can use the share button at the bottom, the little upload icon there. It allows you to share this room on social media directly with others, and if you are inviting others directly that you think may be interested in conversation and viewers, you can narrow the search by using keywords like clinical trials or health equity. That'll help narrow it because Clubhouse will only allow you to ping a certain number of people. We do also highly encourage everyone to select the share on Clubhouse option. That will help increase the likelihood that folks will be able to find this room. So I will be enabling the chat feature for those that would like to use that. Be sure to check out and follow others in the room. We're inspired, and follow me, all our moderators and panelists, co-hosts here today. We'll be sure to ping you into future rooms. We do encourage our audience to participate, so if you find yourself inspired, please raise your digital hand and we'll do our very best to get to everyone. Please note, our club is Consuli Conversations. In addition to this room, we host a Data Dignity, Dealing You into the Data Economy, and Long COVID Patients Meet Researchers room. And very exciting, starting later today, we'll have a room dedicated to sickle cell where we explore how solving sickle cell disease equity, which is a little bit of something we'll touch on here today. So you can learn more by following our club, Consuli Conversations. Just click the little greenhouse at the top, see all of our upcoming rooms. You can set an alert for those now, which is great. So you can add it to your calendar. For any direct questions, comments, feedback, suggestions to join our panel in the future, my email and socials are in my bio. I always love hearing from you guys. You can also find and follow us on social medias. Our handle is @Consuli_Inc. For those that do not yet know Consuli, broadly, Consuli is a public benefit company with the mission to enable individuals to participate in the data economy. Experts do suggest our individual data is 1,000 per year, so we help people choose who gets access to and how their personal information is used, and if and when desired, get them paid for their data and make medicine better. We do this by a marketplace for members where we become. Our members receive smart-matched, individualized offers from us for opportunities, including to participate in clinical trials and data trials. There's no cost to join our movement. You can learn more at consuli.net, consuli.net. That is at the top of the room, pinned to the top of the room right now. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have our special sickle cell room this afternoon, so check that out. We will be speaking to sickle cell a bit in our One Burning Question. So I'd like to also mention that Consuli is pleased to share it has teamed up with Sanguine Biosciences and Pfizer to support an important research study for patients living with sickle cell. So if you or your loved one has been diagnosed with sickle cell disease or over 18, live in the U.S., and you qualify, you can help contribute directly to sickle cell disease research from your home and be paid up to about $1,300. You can learn more by clicking the link that I'm about to pin to the top of the room, and that'll give more information. And I will now turn the floor over to our room co-facilitators, Michael, Sophie, and Talia, who will be introducing themselves, and our expert guests. Michael, now over to you.
Thanks, Julie. I appreciate that. And I know there's an awful lot of information that you shared in the beginning. So if anybody has questions about that, please feel free to ping Julie or use the chat function to do so. It is my pleasure to help us get started here. We welcome all of you who are clinical trialists, pharmacy personnel, pharma industry folks, and in particular patients who are interested in helping us solve our one burning question in clinical trials. We are fortunate to work with Consuli, which is a very innovative team, which are, really dedicated to enabling data for good. And in this case, today we are largely spending the day working on helping to find some better solutions for the management and advocacy of patients afflicted with sickle cell anemia. The folks who are joining us here, in particular, I want to point out that we have a wonderful data scientist, Sophie Johannan, and a terrific global executive in the clinical trials development arena, Talia Height. And so I am really thrilled to have them join us, and we're going to spend the next hour really digging into some hopefully operative types of solutions here. So let me go to Sophie first so that she can introduce herself, and then Soph, if you will pass on to Talia.
Excellent. Thanks, Michael. And thanks, Julie, for that introduction. I am excited about today's discussion. I think it's going to be enlightening for me as well as for everyone else, hopefully for the audience as well. For those who don't know me, my name is Sophie Johannan. I am a clinical evaluation scientist at a medical device company called Boston Scientific. I evaluate the safety and performance of our medical devices. I'm also a clinical research instructor at a company called Clinical Research Fast Track. I have been in the clinical research space for over 19 years now in various different roles at the hospital site level as well as now sponsor level. And so I'm really interested in the betterment of clinical trials, accurate, clean data, and ethical inclusion of all patients who are interested and would benefit from clinical trials. So with that, I really love to take this opportunity each month to bring trial enthusiasts into the room and talk about this one burning question. So thanks to Julie and others for inviting me to co-moderate this discussion. We'll be opening up a discussion on this month's one burning question here in a minute. But before we do that, let's say hello to some of the folks on the stage. And let's begin with my terrific co-moderator, Talia Height.
Thanks, Sophie. We were saying as we started this room that I was so excited to be back here because I've missed the last couple of months for different reasons, and I look forward to this every month, this clubhouse that Consuli puts together, and love getting together to talk with other people about these important topics. So just an introduction for myself. As Sophie said, I'm Talia Height, and I am sort of work in all things clinical trials. My background is I started as a clinical research coordinator about 20 years ago. I've spent extensive time at sort of the site level. I worked in a variety of roles at small clinical research sites and then sort of large phase 1 clinical trial units, clinical pharmacology units. I think I'm so passionate about clinical trials and the role of clinical sites and patients that are enrolled from, under the care of physicians and providers that are in the community, and just the role that we play. I spent a short amount of time on the sponsor side and certainly loved that experience and realized that my heart in clinical trials is really back at sort of the patient level, working with patients and working with providers that are offering clinical trials as a potential care option to their patients. So it's wonderful to be here. I'm excited about this topic and excited to sort of keep the conversation going. So I guess sort of the next step here is we want to introduce our wonderful, wonderful panelists. And maybe I'll take everybody through the sort of introductions for our panelists, and then we'll get to our one burning question. So let's go ahead and start with Edie, please. Love having you here again today. Would you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Happy to. Thank you, Talia. You guys hear me okay? I've got just a little echo on my end.
Yep, hear you great.
Okay,
We're
good.
good.
Yes. All right, so this is Edie Edens, and I have the absolute privilege of joining this wonderful group. I am a licensed attorney and ethicist exclusively practicing in the research compliance and ethics space. I work for a consulting firm, First Class Solutions, here in the United States, but I also consult globally. I have the unique opportunity to train the next generation of research compliance attorneys, who I hope there are many more of at IU's McKinney School of Law, and I run an experiential learning program there as well. And I am in my second decade after spending 10 years inside a large academic medical center in all different roles, enterprise-wide risk management, IRBs, grants, contracts, COI, research integrity, auditing, and then also embedded in a comprehensive cancer center where I was over all of the quality and compliance within that internal CRO mechanism, as well as broadly throughout the School of Medicine. And I've spent 5 years now in the consulting space. And really, my big jump in consulting was not because I didn't love the role of the AMC, but I wanted to diversify. I wanted to have stratification across my engagements so that I was truly closer to the patient and closer to the cause that brought me into and made me, so incredibly passionate about what I get to do in research compliance. So with that, I will pass along to Taya, if that's okay with the moderators, so that we do our intros, and then we'll get down to this question. Thank you so much. This is Edie. I'm complete.
Thank you, Edie. My name is Taya Romero. I work in clinical research, more on CRO IT solutions side. I manage client relationships, and I work toward creating more inclusive environments for employees and helping attract more diverse clientele as well. So I will pass it to Sandra.
Good day, everyone. My name is Sandra L. Washington. I am a board certified patient advocate. I am so grateful to be asked once again to come into this conversation. And with this being Minority Health Month, the topic of sickle cell is truly one that touches my heart because a large part of the minority community, and I want to say minority, the marginalized community, suffer from sickle cell, and because of that, this month is in fact dedicated to those members as well as to everyone else that has some type of condition that minority health is concerned with. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. We also have Caroline here. Caroline, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Talia. Greetings all. I'm honoured to be here today on the panel this evening. My name is Caroline Mutiboko. I'm a clinical research consultant and have been working within the clinical trial landscape for many, many years. I've worked across many therapeutic areas, starting off as a monitor at the site level and then working up to trial management. I truly love the role, and I love working on medicinal products that have the potential to transform patients' lives for the better. So I'm really excited to be here today to speak about and learn more about sickle cell. So yeah, that's it from me for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our panelists here. We are expecting a few more folks to come in a little bit later that we're excited to have join us, and we will have them introduce themselves when we get to a point and once they're able to join us. But I think we can start to kick things off. Sophie, do you want to sort of introduce our one burning question and get our conversation going?
Sure, can do. So today's one burning question is, our past month's lively discussion regarding equitable and effective compensation for trial enrollment has particular application to the category of sickle cell anemia trials. So published research suggests general barriers to health-related research in sickle cell, general mistrust of research studies, emotional and practical concerns, barriers to trial design, randomization, geographic outreach, community dialogue, and mistrust of specific therapies and agents are blockades to successful enrollment. Considering this important disease focus, how can clinical trialists and patients create better pathways to moving new medicines and procedures forward for patients with sickle cell anemia. And I would just like to offer that, even those who haven't worked on a sickle cell anemia clinical trial in the past, if you think about a lot of our clinical trial focuses, we have a hard time enrolling patients from diverse backgrounds or making sure that we have a large swath of patient population across multiple different diagnoses. So this is an issue that touches multiple patient populations, not just sickle cell, but if we can employ some of those tips and tricks that we use to broaden the enrollment of patients in all trials and apply, specific needs of sickle cell anemia patients, I think we can move this forward for this patient population. So with that, I would love to turn it back to Talia.
Amazing, Sophie. Thank you so much. So the format for our room here is we're going to sort of hear from our panelists for a little bit, but we really want to encourage those that are in the room and want to weigh in or have some thoughts, questions, just sort of ideas for the room here to go ahead and raise their virtual hand. And we will bring you up to the stage, up to the panel here when we have a moment to do so. So thank you very much. Please raise your virtual hand and we'll do that. But let's kick things off with some discussion from our panel. And just want to sort of open it up kind of broadly here to Sandra, Caroline, Taya, or Edie. Any thoughts any of you want to sort of start us with here today?
So this is Edie, and I just wanted to, because this is the contribution I feel like I bring most of the discussion today, and then truly I am in the listening seat, is just really tie this question and this concept back to the deepness with which the history of research ethics and how it relates to specific therapeutic areas, specific populations that have been marginalized. For me, that's a main focal point as we talk about sickle cell, of understanding and putting myself in the shoes of the patient and what they may have experienced, what their family may have experienced and been through as a part of being a part of this particular patient population, with that history before us, good, bad, and ugly, of research, and use this in a way almost like a really opportune moment of test case to tie together what we've talked about these last few sessions, because we've had some really meaningful conversation about how some of this has occurred and the downstream effects. And so I would love to hear from the group, or spur on, and I don't want to opine about research ethics. I think most of the folks in this room know a lot about it and have heard about some of the atrocities and frankly some of the challenges we still face. But I really want to understand the specifics of sickle cell as someone who has spent almost 2 decades in research, but has not worked exclusively within this particular population, but has done a lot of, armchair research, right? So I'm hoping maybe we can start that conversation. Thank you. This is Edie. I'm complete. I believe someone's raising their hand.
Yes, thank you. We'll invite a couple of folks to the room, up to the panel. But any other part of our panelists, our panel group here today, want to sort of help expand with thoughts here?
Yeah, Talia, this is Michael, and I just want to piggyback on something that Edie brought up, and then as we're doing that, Julie, I think that there are a couple people that would like to come forward onto the panel. One of the reasons why we chose sickle cell as a focus for the One Burning Question this week is we've been consistently looking for ways in which we could integrate discussions around what we call JEDI: justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And the category of sickle cell anemia really exemplifies this. It's a thorny issue here because the research that needs to be done here requires that the community get very engaged around this and trying to, as industry is reckoning with a lot of this, trying to understand what are the barriers, and we incorporated a lot of that into the one burning question today. But one of the categorical issues is not only around the fact that largely the BIPOC population that is affected by this disease has had significant hurdles to get engagement into clinical trials, and fundamental issues around trust and access. So I would encourage the group to be thinking about what can we do about those kinds of things? How can we improve the levels of trust and really the opportunity for some transparency about what these clinical trials are going to be. So just a challenge. I've done a tremendous amount of work in the rare disease categories, but none of them are as afflicted, if you will, with the kinds of trial complications that you find in this particular patient population. This is Michael, and I'm complete.
Yeah, Michael, I hear what you're saying. You know, I think two things I'll offer. One is we really have to get at the level of the patients, making sure that they understand what their options are, using language that they understand, and getting to the locations where they will be more apt to take in that information, surrounded by people that they trust. So that gets me to my second point, which is our clinical trial healthcare providers and partners also have to be people that this patient population trusts. And you mentioned very aptly the BIPOC population. That's key, because patients very often trust their providers when looking into options for clinical trials, because after all, a lot of it is experimental, right? So, you know, no matter how much information we put out there, certain populations, there's without having a background in science or without having a background in healthcare, there's only so much they're going to understand about the risks and benefits of these trials. So they have to lean on their healthcare providers. So if they have healthcare providers who are from their community, you know, who know how they live, how they eat, how they connect with their family members, their friends, how they travel, how they dress, you know, what kind of music they listen to, what their waking hours are, their schedule is, what their family unit looks like, and what kind of support structure, social support structure they have or don't have, as the case may be. I think that will encourage patients to participate more, and I think that will give them the information, the background information that they need. They're more likely to listen and trust people who are from their community. So I'd love to hear what others have to say about that. Thanks.
I have a really quick
Oh,
comment and then I'll pass it on to Caroline. My comment would be, from what I'm seeing and the future of clinical research, there's not that relationship anymore between a healthcare provider and the patient as there traditionally was. I feel a lot of patients don't have that one person they can connect with or ask healthcare questions to at this time. A lot of that has to do with the way insurance companies work and the restrictions that are put on patient-doctor relationships. You know, there's a time restriction, there's, you know, referral restrictions, et cetera. So where patients are seeing a connection is with other patients and with patient advocacy groups. So where I see a future in helping connect the dots is through working with patient advocacy groups and really educating them on what a clinical trial does and doesn't do, because what a clinical trial doesn't do is just as important as what it will do. So that's what I wanted to add, and I'll pass it to you, Caroline.
Thank you, Tia. Love what you just said, and as well as the speakers before you. And I mean, my opinion, my humble opinion, with regard to sickle cell, is that I believe that the main stumbling block surrounding it's around education or lack thereof, particularly in relation to what sickle cell actually is and how it manifests, both within amongst hospital clinicians and within the community in general. So I would love to see medical schools invest a lot more in the treatment, in the teaching of the treatment and management of clinical trial symptoms, and this is particularly helpful, to know before you come across a patient that's actually in a crisis. Thankfully, of late, I've noticed there to be much more positive discourse around sickle cell as an illness that needs to be talked about, discussed, investigated. I think that social media is playing a huge part in that because, we have many, many more advocacy groups, patient advocacy groups now than we did before that are sharing their knowledge with us, as well as some interesting clinical trials around sickle cell. But going back to what Edie was saying as well, I just think that transparency and acknowledgement of what has happened in the past amongst people who tend to suffer from sickle cell more is very, very important to get that trust. Because without the acknowledgement and without the transparency, I think it's difficult to get the interest of the community, so that families can feel safe in helping or being involved themselves in these trials. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
And I'd actually just like to add into what Edie, Taya, and Caroline stated, in the fact that, one, yes, we do need to make sure that the doctors, not just the doctors, but all medical providers are being just as transparent as they possibly can to build up that trust relationship between the medical staff, because it doesn't just stop at the doctor. Provider, yes, it's important for them to have a good relationship, the patient to have a good relationship with the provider. However, that whole medical staff represents that provider. So it's not just helpful for just the doctor, the patient, and the doctor to have a good relationship. The whole team needs to be on board with making sure that they're as transparent as they possibly can be when it comes to dealing, talking to patients and gaining that trust. The other issue that I did want to bring up is in relation to patient advocacy groups. Yes, we are important as a board certified patient advocate. Yes, we are important to the whole mix. I mean, we all have to work together to push it forward, but there are a lot of medical providers, clinicians, doctors, nurses who are now getting into the independent patient advocacy group. And so the clinical is there. There are clinicians that are now have left their practices and are now doing independent patient advocacy work. So the patient has access to not just clinical but non-clinical when it comes into bringing bringing it closer so that the patient does understand. This is Sandra, and I'm back to you. I'm not sure who it is. Back to you, Talia.
That's great, Sandra, and you're absolutely right. Thank you for bringing all of that up. I mean, there's the clinical component, of course, as you've described, their clinical care that they're receiving, but patients are living with their chronic conditions, and in this case, as we're discussing sickle cell anemia, and that is, that's something that they're living with across the board in their everyday lives, and as they're sort of suffering from that, and in periods of time when they're doing well. And so how all of those components across patient advocacy groups, their communities at large, who they interact with across the board, it's something to view the patient really as a whole. We've got some additional members that we've brought to our panel here today. Welcome, Justin. It's good to see and talk with you again. Excited to have you here. So just want to, again, encourage anybody from the room, please feel free if you'd like to sort of weigh in on this topic here for our one burning question, please raise your hand. We're happy to bring you up. Anybody want to weigh in? I see Edie has come off mute. Edie, would you like to share
Yeah,
your thoughts here?
I wanted to kind of just add and dovetail into some of these great points that have been made and really echo as we throw it to the crowd, really three kind of, fluid points here. And one is, I think it's equally as important when we're talking about the history of research and research ethics and, how we arrived where we are today and continue to be, that we, of course, highlight things that happened and notable atrocities from many decades ago, but that we also highlight that this is still very much a struggle, whether it is, social justice, the, as Michael stated, Jedi principles that we are thankfully discussing, more robustly today than maybe we were several years ago, whether it is things, for those of you who are in the know, like the support trial and other situations that have occurred in the last decade or two. And it did bring a lot of new questions about ethics and the changing, world that we live in and those changing variables, because our ethics are not set in time, right? And so I think it's really important that we acknowledge not just that it happened in the past, but that it still could happen, even with all of these regulations in place. That's all the more reason that these conversations are so important. That number two, when you look at all these regulations or all these mechanisms, workflows, SOPs, all the different wonderful things that we have at our fingertips and we utilize more regularly and traditionally in research, understanding that those are also changing as this conversation is changing, right? And so mechanisms like the IRB or the FDA need to hear from us and patients as much as we need to hear from them to really reach a meaningful resolution. And then, third, when I think about practical ways that I'm seeing this play out, and I really want to hear from the audience on this one as it relates to sickle cell, also the piece of, so a lot of you know I work a lot in oncology. That's one of my particular depths and spaces. And oncology, not really because initially of the advocacy angle, but frankly because of just the complexity of navigating that trial life, has had patient navigators in large hospital settings and research centers for quite some time. And the value of those roles was not only that it advocated for patients at an individual level, but the ones that are doing it and doing it, I mean, damn well, are getting out in their particular community. They have figured out, like some of the other great panelists up here were talking about, that the avenues by which our patients seek information and build trust is no longer exclusive to like a GP, right? It's no longer a PCP. Those relationships may still exist, but in a lot of cases do not. And so these patient navigators are isolating and targeting the avenues by which they know their patients gain trust and garner information and going out in the community for those particular avenues instead of just continuing to do it the way we've always done it. So I hope we can build on those pieces and those threads. Thank you so much. This is EDM Complete.
Thanks, Edie. I love that we're opening this up and kind of broadening our view. Definitely patient advocates and also advocacy groups in the community who have a kind of deeper, broader reach into the community, probably a really good idea. So I just wanted to pass the mic to Justin to allow him to introduce himself, and then maybe Justin, you want to give us your insight as you're listening to us initiate this conversation about reaching sickle cell patients.
Yeah, thanks, Sophie. So sorry everyone for being late. I hate jumping in the middle of a conversation, but I also didn't want to miss this one because these ones are always such great discussions. Justin Gundelach worked for about 18 years in various research capacities at Mayo Clinic. Never specifically with sickle cell anemia, but I did want to comment a little bit further on what Ed was talking about. And so she was mentioning these patient navigators as, people that are, as she said, if they're doing it well, they're not just working in the clinic in the hospital, they're getting out into the community. I think that, this is a topic that's come up in this forum, regardless of the specific subject, over and over again. How do you get your message out? How do you build relationships in the community. One thing that I've seen in my own work, we engage, we have a number of community advisory boards that are absolutely invaluable for us. And the purpose of these boards is supposed to be for them to advise us. They gather on a regular cadence. We'll bring, people from our organization can sign up to come present a particular topic, about their research that they want feedback on, and they, present it to this board. They get feedback from the various members of the community, but it's absolutely no secret that while the purpose is to get feedback from the board, we know that they are to some degree our voices to the community. If we have all our ducks in a row and we are doing things in a way that the community wants it done, and they see that, and they don't have to give us that much feedback or correction, or if they do and they see that we're taking their message to heart and putting it to action the next time that we come and present our update to them, we know that they're going back and communicating that to their communities. So that's a huge tool for us. Still, love to see other avenues of getting that message out to the community as well as building those relationships. But as someone personally who's worked his entire career in academic medical center, I'm not as familiar with other parts of the clinical trial industry. I'm curious for other people. Do pharma companies, CROs, any of the other components of the clinical trial industry leverage CABs at all? Justin, I'm done speaking.
So Justin, thanks for your question there. I think you're going down the right track here, because we along with the patient navigators and with other individuals that are a part of the, if you will, the machinery, the community of doing clinical trials, we need to find the trusted points of communication, in this case to the sickle cell community. And I think that Caroline was definitely going in that direction, certainly, as well as Sandra. I note that Elle has joined our group here. Elle, from the standpoint of the CRO world and the sponsor world, do you want to comment a little bit on what Justin was talking about? Elle?
Hi, Michael. This is Elle. Hello. No, I'm sorry. I caught the tail end of it, so I did not hear his full question.
Justin, do you want to
Yeah,
rephrase that?
I can jump in there, and I realized after I posed it that I maybe had it a little bit too focused. So I was just saying, what a great resource our community advisory boards are for us, not just for their intentional purpose of giving us feedback, but also then for kind of being a conduit that can kind of take our message back to the community and help evangelize it to a certain extent. So I was asking if so I'm coming from an academic medical perspective. I'm curious if other parts of the clinical trial industry utilize CABs as well, but it doesn't need to be. I'm curious to hear what other types of avenues are already open without needing to go out and set up additional infrastructure. What are the avenues that we already have that we can leverage to communicate our messages that we want to get out to our communities? Justin, I'm done speaking.
These have shifted dramatically over the COVID environment, and it used to be a lot more hands-on and the face-to-face and getting out with advocacy groups and meeting in person and going to churches and community events. And then it had to shift, of course, to a more online community environment and looking at social media and other avenues of communication. So I think that accelerated the whole virtual environment, and it certainly advanced it in some ways, but it did decrease it in others. So I think the answer is things are shifting now, and this is a big focus on how to adjust now and look towards the future. But I think everyone is realizing that the educational components and the community activism need to be activated fully, and this is a priority, looking at it both from a communication lens and a priority among sponsors and CROs from what I've seen.
That's terrific, Al. Thank you. Yeah, I thought you might have some insights, and thanks for confirming that. You know, I am really interested. We've had a couple other, if you will, trusted avenues to get better education, as Sandra brought up, about the category of clinical trials with the sickle cell anemia community. Do you believe, and this out to the panel here, do you believe that primary caregiver, the HCP who is doing both the diagnostic and the follow-up work with these individual patients, is the main conduit to get these patients into clinical trials, or are there better avenues that we should be pursuing?
I'm going to say, Michael, that even though the provider may not be the main conduit at this point because we have so many other avenues, there's still that clinical responsibility there, that medical responsibility, right? To make sure that the patient's health comes first and everything that's done, every option that's presented to the patient is in the patient's best interest, right? So I think there's still a reason to have the provider involved in the decision or the I guess funneling, if you say, of the information to the patient to make sure the patient is getting accurate, well-rounded information and can have the support along the way to make that decision, because it's a process, right? It's not always an instant decision. So, but I think we do have other pathways that we've heard today already. This is Sophie. I'm complete.
This is Justin. I'll just chime in and say, one thing when I switched from laboratory research to clinical, more clinically focused research, I leaned a lot on my own personal experience participating in clinical trials, and I learned after a while that I had to kind of step back from that a little bit because I brought too much of my own experience to how I was shaping, how I did my own work, knowing that my experience is not going to be the same as everyone's. And so if I think about how I would approach a clinical trial, if my PCP is bringing the information to me and consulting with me on it.
Did we just lose audio on Justin?
Yeah, I can't hear either. I was wondering.
Yeah, I think he's back now, but want to say he's back now. I'm going to let
Establish that.
I'm going to let Justin, I'm going to let you go ahead. I do want to add to that.
Justin, if you can hear us
So,
and speak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry. Did I cut out while my phone was ringing there?
Unfortunately, we lost you.
Yeah. My apologies. I forget about that feature at Clubhouse. I was just saying, my experience as someone coming from a place of privilege, I have a trusting relationship built already with the healthcare system, with my PCP. So they are going to be a natural source of trusted information. But I can't assume that everybody has that experience if I'm already a person that comes from a place where I've been mistreated by the system. I've never had the resources to have a long-lasting relationship with a PCP that I trust. That's not going to be that great of a source of information. So I don't think we can lean on that and say we're going to use, people's primary care systems as the source of information that we're going to get this information out by, because if they're already not trusting of the system, you're building on a bad foundation there.
Yeah, now we're getting to the crux of the issue. Thank you, Justin. I think that's
Did you want to add anything, Sandra? Please, I'd
I,
love to hear from
yes, I
you.
did. I actually wanted to just touch bases with this. We're talking about the PCP, the primary care physician. A lot of sickle cell patients see specialists, and those specialists, a lot of times, were better, more equipped, and more educated in certain things in order to be able to talk to the patient and explain to the patient because that's their specialty. Sickle cell is their specialty. So, while it's good to talk to a primary care physician, a lot of times they're not going to have the information that a specialist has. So we have to bring that specialist into the picture as well and use them as another point basis to make sure the patient understands what a clinical trial is and isn't. This is Sandra. Back to you, Talia.
That's great, Sandra. Thank you for sharing that. That's exactly right, and that's such an important perspective here. Thank you. Additional discussion from the room, and actually maybe this is a good opportunity to sort of reset the room for a minute, Julie, and just reintroduce the topic again for some folks that may have just joined us. Maybe we could do that, please.
Hi. Thanks, Talia. Yeah, sorry, I was deep in the back channels and uh, it was a long way to get to my mute button. So thank you for that. And yeah, so hi everyone. This is Julie Schmidt, project manager at Consuli, host for this clinical trials room. I do hope everyone is enjoying the conversation. I'll take a moment just to reset our room, share a little bit about Consuli's mission. First of all, we're a public benefit company working to create a marketplace where we deal individuals like you and me into the data economy and help make medicine better by smart matching patients with clinical trials that are right for them. We are creating a movement and there is no cost to join, so you can check us out and sign up. I'll pin that to the top of the room again. You can find all of our website links to our socials, also my direct email in my bio. I love hearing from you guys. So any questions, comments, feedback, to join any panels, please let me know. Be sure to follow our club, Consuli Conversations. Tap the little greenhouse at the top there. You can see all our upcoming rooms. And I do want to note that we will be having a specific sickle cell room this afternoon at 4:30 Pacific time for anyone that would like to join that. You can certainly find that directly in our Consuli Conversations profile, and you can set an alert for that, which is a nice new Clubhouse feature. Additionally, Consuli is pleased to share that it has teamed up with Sanguine Biosciences and Pfizer to support an important research study for patients living with sickle cell disease. So if you or a loved one have been diagnosed with sickle cell disease or over 18, live in the U.S., and you qualify, you can help contribute directly to sickle cell disease research from home and be paid up to about $1,300. You can just learn more by clicking the link that's pinned to the top of the room right now. It will lead you to a survey to see if you are eligible. So, and feel free to share that with anyone that you think may be interested or eligible. Additionally, take a moment to ping others into the room that you think may be interested in this conversation using the upload icon at the bottom there. You can also share this into the Clubhouse hallways. And I will pass this back to Michael. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. This is Julie, and I'm done speaking.
Thanks, Julie. I think since we've just reset the room, I just wanted to take a minute because I know that the conversation around sickle cell anemia is probably fraught with a tremendous number of assumptions. And I thought I'd just broaden the discussion to understand that, this is not as rare a disease as, some people might think. Certainly among the African American community, the prevalence, I should say the incidence of this disease is 1 in every 400 African American births. Also, I think it's important to understand that sickle cell anemia afflicts a tremendous number of Hispanics, in particular of Caribbean ancestry. So there, approximately, it doesn't occur quite as frequently as it does in the African American population, but 1 in every 1,000 Hispanic American children have sickle cell anemia. And Then more globally, a little less of a U.S. focus, but more globally, the disease is often found among people of Arabian, Greek, Italian, Sardinian, Turkish, Maltese, and Southern Asian ancestry. So I thought I'd just share that because it for this group on this call, it may help us expand our thinking about the way in which we can educate and reach and be more inclusive of populations who would be afflicted with this disease. This is Michael, and I'm done speaking, and I'll come back to Sophie if she has some comments.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Those are some good stats. I hadn't thought about that actually. So yeah, we need to think about which communities we're affecting, how to reach the people in those communities, and then also what do they need beyond the typical clinical trial setup and compensation. What are their specific needs in order to participate, in order to get to the trial sites. And in order to feel safe, and supported and well informed to participate in these trials. So I'll throw that question out there for the panel. This is Sophie. I'm complete.
Sophie, this is Sandra. I will actually take a try and answering that. And I say take a try, and this is why I say take a try, because each patient is different. Each patient population is different. So what might work well for one or might work well for one patient population very often doesn't work well for someone else. So it's all going to begin with talking to the patients and asking them, not just assuming what they feel, but asking them, how can we help you? Because the last thing that you want to do as a clinician is force help upon someone that's not looking for it. So it's going to take opening up, segues to have conversations with patients, to be honest about why you're asking them for their information, to be just as transparent as we're asking the clinicians to be when they talk to the patients. We all have to be transparent. Why do you want to talk to me? What information do you want? Why do you want it? We all have to be transparent. So it's all going to begin with opening up that door and opening up the communication line and inviting the patients to come in and telling the patients exactly what you want. No trickery involved. Just telling them what you want. We want to help you, and this is why we want to help you. If you don't do that, then all is lost. This is Sandra. Back to you, Sophie.
Sandra, I just want to jump in and say I love your passion about everything that you do. So thank you so much for contributing. And I just want to make a little administrative note to everybody. Julie and myself, as well as other staff, we are trying valiantly to get everybody to the stage. For some reason, there is a little bit of a software glitch this morning, and so we apologize for that, but we're working our way to that. Okay, thank you. This is Michael, and I'll come back to Sophie.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, I've been trying to get David up here for probably an hour, and I'm not sure what's happening. So thank you for announcing that. Sandra, what a simple but effective possible solution, one of the solutions to this issue. Ask the patients, right? Ask them what they need, how they need to be communicated to, what support they need, and how can we be that support? What further do they need to feel confident and comfortable in participating in clinical trials, especially sickle cell related clinical trials? And I think I would love to also know from them what is their impression of a sickle cell anemia clinical trial. What do they think is going to happen? Just like we have preconceived notions, like Justin mentioned earlier, they do too. And maybe the only way we can find out what they are is by asking those questions. So with that, I want to turn the mic to Abdurrahman, who has just joined the stage. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome. And I'd love for you to introduce yourself and give us a little your impression. What do you think about this topic?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Abdurrahman Khalil. I'm a research fellow at Mass General Hospital, Department of Cardiology. I'm really interested in this topic because, like, to be honest, like sickle cell disease is not exclusive to the African American community. Sickle disease is like uh, is uh, is also, I think it's more common among the Middle Eastern and Mediterranean population. It's like around 2.6% prevalence, like in the Middle East. So it's really important to study such kind of disease and trait, not only among the African Americans, also like among the Middle Eastern descents in the United States. There's a big population of Arab descents in New Jersey, Michigan, Dearborn, Chicago, California, Texas, and Florida. So the problem is with the centralized clinical trials are the resources are focused on certain areas for certain population, and I think the way of like decentralizing these trials and make them more like accessible to a different and more diverse population is like the key to reach better data and better representation of the patients among different population. Thank you. I'm done speaking.
Thanks for sharing that. That's wonderful. Anybody have a response to that, or to, sort of any of this discussion, this sort of thread that we've started to pull here, in discussing the prevalence, sort of building that trust, asking patients specifically what it is that they would, need to be confident and comfortable, for example, participating in a trial in this, in this particular population. Anybody want to respond to that? And we also have a new panelist, but Caroline, before we get to that, maybe do you have a thought you want to
Yes,
share?
I do. Just very quickly, just following on from what Sandra was saying, I just think that it's just so important to incorporate the patient's voice and the patient's DNA into the design of the trial early on. So it's great to bring in patients and get their opinions and their viewpoints on things. But I really think that kind of discussion needs to happen at the very start of the trial, whilst the protocol has been written up, so that they can have an input into this trial that's going to affect them is being designed. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Thanks, Caroline. Jennifer, welcome to the stage. We'd love to have you introduce yourself and love to hear your thoughts on this.
Great. So, hi, everybody. Sorry, it's a little late. I couldn't get in either. But happy to join in this conversation. I've been in clinical research for 30 plus years, and my role has always been in the operational aspects of setting up the studies, finding the sites. I don't have as much experience directly with sickle cell, but one of the things I do a lot of work with is finding these difficult to reach patients, rare diseases, and how to find them. And I do want to echo what was just said about the decentralized trials. The one really remarkable thing that's come out of all of this pandemic is that we are finally able to be more creative about how we run trials. And every one of us as sponsors are challenged to get enrollment rates, that we need. And I think we're finally learning that if we make it easier for the patients, it helps all of us. We get to the patients, we get the data we need, and we truly help people. So I think we're at a point where we're finally able to do that, and it's an exciting time for the industry. I'll hand it back.
I have just one point to add. I heard, I think before, that about like having like providers, physicians, like having like from the communities that we want to like recruit. I also like I think it's a really great idea, but I also want to point out that also like we need like more the patient who the staff and the teams who work on these studies also to be like familiar to these communities. They speak their languages, and understand the cultural difference and the cultural sensitivities of these communities, because always there's been kind of misunderstanding or lack of trust between the research community and the local community. So also this cultural bond with recruiting like local staff and local teams that can speak and understand the language of these communities. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm done speaking.
Yeah, I think that's extremely powerful, and you're right. You know, in every trial that we do, we deal with, even from a pure language perspective, translations and you know, understanding what the driver is for the patients are critical. And that is still probably a disconnect we're going to have for a long time. Because, I mean, pharma, it takes a while for us to start thinking that way. We're not always even listening to the site's needs, you know, and now to say we really need to understand what the patient's needs are, but it's something we have to do better.
Jennifer, this is Michael, and I couldn't agree with you more. Unfortunately, the pharmaceutical industry is much more built around a late adopter type of approach, and frequently they're waiting to see what trends are, and going away from the so-called tried and true isn't. In fact, if you take a look at what's happening with decentralized trials, you know, this is not something brand new. It's been around for several years, but it's finally beginning to get some traction. I think that poses some specific problems for diseases such as sickle cell anemia, in which recruitment continues to be a huge complication. And as you know, Abdoram brought up, there are a lot of cultural barriers here, as we've all talked about. You know, I mean, in all candor, the group that's assembled today, in all of our wisdom and experience, you know, we're lacking in a lot of times the specificity around some of these, you know, disease entities. And I hear it in the conversation. We're all trying to get to, you know, equitable and inclusive types of solutions. But ultimately, we really need to be, you know, as Sandra is always quick to point out, we all need to be talking directly to the community that's afflicted. This is Michael, and I'm done speaking.
I just wanted to, you know, it's great to say that we want to talk to the community that's affected, but that's easier said than done for a lot of reasons. The biggest one being, if you're not able to reach them, if your clinical trial recruitment efforts aren't reaching them in the first place, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to be able to reach them to get the feedback. So, you know, even when we do go out and try to get feedback, and I've been parts of a handful of efforts in different ways to do exactly that, you're still only getting feedback from the audience that you're reaching, and you're probably not reaching the people that you need to hear from the most. It's a really tough chicken and egg problem.
Justin, I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said. However, what I would like to introduce to you is a concept, and I'm sure we've all heard of it before, but we all need to really get aligned with it, is that no one can move this mountain by itself, right? So where you're having, like you might be having problems reaching, or someone else might be having problems reaching a certain, you know, certain patient population, there are always groups. I work with two groups right now where we go out and we do exactly what you're saying you're not able to do. So you have to partner up. If you want this to work, you have to partner up. If your idea isn't really the best practices, then start outreaching and start reaching out to those groups that do it, so that they can actually help you and encourage you and say, hey, well, we can come in and take over that part. We have to do this together. We cannot do it alone. If we try to do it alone, it's going to fail. And none of us in this room or that's listening to this conversation today want this to fail. We all want it to work. This is Sandra. I'm complete. I think back to you, Sophie.
Oh, thank you, Sandra. You always have such great input and you always have such a positive outlook. And I agree with you. We can't do it alone. None of us are islands. So if we have If you know about any patient advocacy groups that are in specific communities, please share with us. We do have the chat feature in this room where you can share some of those resources, and maybe we can partner up and start to reach those corners that are not easily reachable. With that, I want to pass the mic to Raquel, who's just joined our stage. And Raquel, I see that you're new to Clubhouse. I see your party hat, so congratulations. Thank you for joining us. And I would just love to hear a short introduction of yourself and how you are connected to this room or this topic. And I'd love to hear your opinion. This is Sophie. I'm complete. Raquel, can you hear us? And perhaps you have a hard time. Do you know how to unmute your mic there, Raquel? In the bottom right corner, there's an
Oh,
icon. There you go. All right.
oh my goodness. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sophie. Sophie, thank you for inviting me into this wonderful group. Wow, I can't believe this group exists. But I was just listening to everyone, and let me just give you a little bit about my background. I am Raquel Downing. I am a researcher, clinical researcher. I have a doctorate degree in bioethics and biomedicine science. So I think someone did mention that here in this group. I think it was Edie,
Edie.
right? Did I say it correctly?
You did.
Yes?
You did.
No?
Sorry, I was blinking.
Okay.
When you're new, I forget. Sorry, when you blink, when you see the mute button, do you watch my screen?
Okay, got it.
That's someone like agreeing with you or seconding what you're saying or saying yes. That's like the
Okay.
way Clubhouse does that. So yes, you said
So
it
I'm
correct.
learning. So, so my background is, right now I'm at finishing up my last project on clinical trials at Harvard Medical School, in which what we do is we actually create different studies for clinical trials. And hopefully, I'm rooting for this last project that we are working for, that we can actually get funding for this particular one. I can't speak about it because we are still working on it, but my focus is rare disease. And I was listening to Sandra when she spoke about advocacy in certain communities to get people involved. One of the problems, I live here in New York City, so this is a huge problem. Most people in the communities are not fully aware of their health concerns. And a lot of times, because it's oversaturated with so many patients, I really truly don't believe that the physicians have enough time to really speak to patients about so many problems that they have. Is probably why we have so many health issues today. Rare disease is something that should be more common, focused on than just basic medicine. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I've learned through research that most people have rare diseases, whether they know it or not. Sickle cell, I have a son who has uh, doesn't have full sickle cell, but he does have a trait. And I did not find that out until after he was diagnosed with brain cancer. So here we go again. Someone who is have a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, know a lot of physicians, and still somehow we did not know anything about sickle cell until he was diagnosed with cancer. So what I'm saying here is to say that I think we need more advocacy groups focusing on, maybe I might be saying it wrong, clinical advocacy, something that I do not see far as with clinical research. We have all the other people that focus on the research aspects of it, but how do we get the people? I see clinical trials all the time here in New York City. I see it signs all over the place, and people just walking past it. They have no idea what clinical trials are. And so many people are scared of clinical trials being part of a study because they think that something is going to happen to them. So yes, education is the key. I think one of the young ladies did mention that here, and I just, Caroline, education is key. We have to educate the communities. We have to have more people, more teams, more systems in place so that clinical trials can be another form of way of introducing new medicine to patients, because there's a cure for everyone out here, I believe. And most of the problems that we do have is because we lack of, as I believe Caroline mentioned earlier. So thank you for having me part of this group, and I look forward to being part of this group for a very long time. I'm really enjoying the conversations. Thank you.
Raquel, this is Michael. I'm one of the principal co-moderators here, and you are welcome every first Thursday of the month. We are the Clinical Trials Clubhouse. We'll meet at 1:30 Eastern and 10:30 in the morning out here on the West Coast. So I hope you will become a regular to this, because every month we try to come up with a one burning question that we actually curate from comments from around the nation, and this always turns into a really fascinating discussion. Today, I will share with you that I feel very a bit frustrated, but very gratified that at least we're scraping the top of what needs to be discussed here. And one of the features for people like yourself, Raquel, and Jennifer, and Abduram, you're new to this group here, but I want to let you know that we try very hard to get the things that really, really matter. And we know from personal experience and working with the Consuli team here that this category of sickle cell anemia is really fraught with a tremendous amount of baggage that you wouldn't normally run into in some sort of a straightforward primary care or oncology type trial. So, great thanks to everybody's input so far on this. And we certainly want to continue the conversation for a few more minutes here. But I just wanted to jump in and make sure, Raquel, you know that your comments are always welcome. This is Michael, and I'm complete.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Jennifer. I just want to add, I think this conversation is I agree, wonderful. And one thing, I assume people know this, but you might not. I have a client that I recently started working with that had asked me desperately to help with recruitment issues. So it's not that the drug companies don't want to fix this. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars on these programs. So I think it's like we've said, they don't know how to, and that we all know about these patient advocacy groups. Unfortunately, not to begrudge anyone, but many of them are doing walks and fundraisers. A lot of them, when you really start to ask, what can we do better? They don't have, they can't help you. So I love, I think it was what Sandra had said, we have to figure out ways to really get to the answers of what can we do better. We want to do it. We have the money. I think that there's more we can do through advocacy groups to truly, bring awareness to these trials and make them easier for the patients. I hand back the mic.
Thanks, Jennifer. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I agree with Michael. We have only just scratched the surface of this topic, and we will need to go a little bit deeper to find some solutions. So with that, I think this is the perfect time to start our requests for topics for our next one burning question next month. I would open up the floor to anyone who has specific ideas, requests, comments, questions, and let us know what you want to see, what you want to discuss here. This is Sophie. I'm complete.
Thank you, Sophie. So we encourage anybody, as she said, we'd love to hear from people that maybe aren't on the panel yet, but have some thoughts about what they would love to discuss in a future month. Please feel free to raise your hand or type it into the chat here. This is where we poll. We've discussed, I don't know, in the year or so that we've been doing this, I'd say it's been, we've had all kinds of exciting topics, everything from sort of engagement around clinical trials to sort of the role of advocacy groups in clinical trials, of course, building trust, items related to sort of the ethics of clinical trials and sort of how that plays into our current environment and the dynamic that we're in. So we have a variety of topics. Please feel free to chime in. Any thoughts from anyone?
I think we also talked about compensation around clinical trials, so that's another branch off. I feel like we touched on something today to do with decentralized trials, and so I wonder if that could be part of our topic in the coming months. Maybe how decentralized trials relate to sickle cell anemia population and how it might be beneficial for that population. This is Sophie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you could easily have a real conversation about, ways. I mean, decentralized trials is a phrase that's used very often now, but what are the real ways that we can make things better for patients, like the hands-on ways to do it, and I think it varies for each disease, but if people understand, ways that could be better for these sickle cell patients, I believe the pharma companies would be happy to do it. They just need to know.
I would love to actually add into this. I would be more than willing to actually invite someone that I know that would be able to lend a listening ear and add some in-depth conversation from the side of the patient advocacy world to next month's conversation on whatever it is. I just need to know what it's going to be about, and I will actually see if he can take some time. He is an attorney, so see if he can take some time away to actually appear so that he can lend his ear. So just let me know. But that's my input for next month's conversation.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you so much. I have got you down. So we will be reaching out to you for that contact and to continue this conversation. Does anyone else have any ideas, comments, or questions for next time? Abdul Rahman, I think I mispronounced your name earlier and I apologize. I really like your idea about, making sure that we have more diversity, not only in the provider, but in the ancillary staff and the community around. I wonder if you have any ideas around that, what we can do.
I mean, no problem. I mean, many people confuse my name like few times, around 10 probably will
I'm so
will be able
sorry.
to pronounce it well. That's okay, no problem. I mean, it's I cannot think of more than just recruiting diverse staff and ancillary staff. It's I think it's the more appropriate way now, because like those staff that are like doing or performing the procedures or the study procedures are more in contact with the patient than the provider or the PI most of the time. So it's I think it's more important to make sure that they are like, at least they understand and they are part of these communities. They understand their languages, because many of these like immigrant communities around the cities, big cities, metropolitan cities, they don't have like a good like English proficiency. So uh, having like bilingual staff is very essential. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Abdul Rahman. I really appreciate that. I want to actually turn the mic to Raquel for a minute for your response, because I think you also have some experience in this realm, ensuring that we have some diversity. in our clinical trial landscape? And what do you think? Do you think what do you think we can do to attract more diverse clinical trial staff?
I think, well, thank you, Sophie. This is Raquel. I think we need to hire more people that are diverse than every population. One of the things I've noticed from doing my research with my doctorate degree uh, was that most people are that actually that have that is controlling the study are people that don't look like the people that necessarily need to be part of the study. I do not think that the studies are diverse. It doesn't represent all populations of people. I think that is critical because it really doesn't tell us necessarily if, in fact, that medicine will work for everyone, only for certain populations of people. Um, I think that we also need to introduce more genetic medicine into our studies. I think that we definitely need to have more, as I said earlier, a diverse population. And that means that you have to start probably hiring people in communities. And I understand that the way it's kind of structured right now, it's not that way. But I think you need more advocates in the medical facilities, hospitals, um, uh, on clinical trials. They need to be part of that team, the advocates, because the advocates are the ones who are going to really get you those patients, because it has to be people who are passionate about the field, who really understands it, people who have been through it somehow, whether it's a loved one, someone, or themselves. That those kind of things is really what gets people to understand a little bit and be willing to understand and talk to. So they need someone that they can actually relate to, which is the key point, I believe, in clinical research and for trials to really be successful, because there are too many trials that are going on. And even if it's a site that has, you only need 15 patients. I've seen sites where people have said that they can't even get 15 people, and it's like here in New York City, it's just almost impossible that can be, because I can pinpoint for myself, how to get. I can look at a community myself and just see how easy for me it is for me to be able to speak to people and make them understand that. But it has to be someone that, people that are passionate about it and are able to communicate in a way to other people understanding, because I think someone mentioned it earlier. A lot of times people are not educated enough, so they really don't understand. They truly just don't understand how it works. And I think I hope I answered your question.
Yes, I believe so. Thank you, Raquel. Yeah, we did
Thank
talk
you.
about that point earlier, about getting to the understanding level of the individual. So it's different for each individual. It's different in different communities, and explaining in a way that they can understand sometimes requires enlisting the help of someone from that community, right? So as Abdur said earlier, not just the provider, but also the clinical trial staff and the advocates and everyone that is connected with that clinical trial. Thank you so much, Raquel.
Oh,
And thank you everyone for your ideas, questions, and comments so far. I'm going to turn it over to Julie to summarize and round us out here. Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, Sophie. We do just have a couple minutes left for this room, and I know, Priya, if you wanted to come off mute and just add your comment. I'm also going to pin our Miro board. It's a public whiteboard, virtual whiteboard. If anybody would like to take a look at that, add comments, questions there, that's a great place to sort of keep this conversation going and for us to pull ideas for the next room. So Priya, I'll pass it to you, and then I will close us out for a 12 o'clock end time. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, Julie. I just wanted to thank everybody in the panel for the great discussion. I'm a product manager for a clinical trials application, but I have not worked closely in the sickle cell anemia research world. So thank you for all the wonderful discussion here. Thanks, Sophie, for bringing me on. I just wanted to maybe for future discussion, if we haven't discussed how adaptive trials could benefit patients and specifically so in rare diseases, because I'm hearing a lot of things about how trials can adapt as they go and continue to help patients. So it would be great if somebody could just shed light on that. I'm just learning about it right now for my own research. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priya. I think that's great, and we will certainly be adding that to our list. I think we have just so much more we could discuss, and this could go on for so long. I really appreciate everybody being here today. I am going to go ahead and close us out. Thanks so much for joining us. I do have a poor signal, so if you can't hear me, please let me know. Please contribute any of your ideas to our clinical trials board. If there's anything else that you remember later down the line, I love hearing from you guys directly. So please, by all means, send me a back channel here. You can find my email in my profile. You can reach us on on Consuli's socials, any which way. Please feel free to reach out, and we really hope to see you also in our special sickle cell room later today. That's happening at 4:30 Pacific time, which is I think 7:30 Eastern time. We'll be exploring how sickle cell disease relates to health equity. Very specifically, we've got a really great panel for that, so definitely check it out. You can check that out in our profile. And Consuli is pleased to share that it is teamed up with Sanguine Biosciences and Pfizer to support a research study for patients living with sickle cell. So if you or a loved one have been diagnosed with sickle cell disease or over 18, live in the US, and you qualify, you can help contribute directly to sickle cell disease research from home and be paid up to about $1,300. So I'm adding that link to the top of the room now. It was there previously. This will lead you also to a survey that you can share with anyone that you think may qualify and be interested. So definitely check that out. Follow all our other moderators here in the room as well. And if you follow Consuli Conversations, you'll see in our profile, you can tap the little green house there to see. You'll see all our other rooms as well. So in addition to this, our special sickle cell room, we do have our long COVID patients meet researchers and data dignity, dealing you into the data economy rooms. All these thread in really well together, so check them out. Be sure to follow everyone here, find us on social media, and always reach out to me if you'd like. So thank you so much. For those that joined during our event or after our opening announcements and don't yet know Consuli, broadly, Consuli is a public benefit company with a mission to enable individuals to participate in the data economy. Experts do suggest our individual data is worth $20,000 per year, so we do this by operating a marketplace for members where we become their agent and assemble their data, health records, labs, prescriptions, wearables, quality of life surveys, things like that. So importantly, members are able to receive smart matched individualized offers from us for opportunities, including to participate in clinical and data trials. So if any members want to be part of the data dignity movement and or participate in clinical trials, you can sign up to be matched to a study at consuli.net. That's CONSULI.net. You can find our main page as well. There's no cost to join our movement, and join us for future discussions and as a member of Consuli. So thanks so much, everyone. Again, we'll see you next time. I'll leave this room open for just a moment in case anyone wants to poke around anyone's bios and make sure you're following who you'd like to follow. Thank you, Julie. I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Julie, and good afternoon to everyone.